The only thing that you should be thinking about to navigate your day is where's my brain on scale to 1 to 100. The best version of ourselves is not a secret. When we are the best version of ourselves in only the most important moments of the day, then it organically impacts the rest of the moments. That is far easier and far different than trying to be the best version of myself all day long at everything. Every higher human ability and every higher human experience seems to be happening at 10 hertz, and not just today, but historically.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm your host today. And in the studio, we are featuring Dr. Izzy Justice. How are you today, sir?
Rick, I'm really good. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on your show. I look forward to our conversation.
I do as well. I'm so glad that you are here. Folks, and I'm glad that you're here as well. If you don't mind, if you haven't done it already, I would be grateful if you would like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. And now, without further ado, let's get to it. So, Dr. Izzy, myself, the audience, would love to learn a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Big question, and I'll try to give you, a rational answer. So I consider myself a neuroscientist. I'm originally from Southern Africa. I'm a person of color, and I've always struggled with, as far back as my memory goes, like 3-4 years, struggled with trying to understand my human experience. I was the sixth out of 7 children, so when I came along, I was pretty down low on the family totem pole. I don't know that I had a voice, because I had 3 older brothers and 2 older sisters, a mom, a dad, and we grew up in a really, really small, less than 1,000 square foot home. And I grew up in a culture where the elders had the floor. Even culturally, I didn't have a voice. And I've struggled with all of the frameworks that were available to me, whether it was religious or spiritual or scientific. I don't know that I struggle necessarily with, what's the meaning of life and why we're here and what happens to us after we die. I gave up on those questions a long time ago. The question that I now try to answer, or I've been trying to answer, Rick, for quite some time, is simply how can I be the best version of myself, especially in moments that matter? And I've realized that, the primary instrument, if not the exclusive instrument, that I'm using to be the best version of myself, especially in moments that matter, is my brain. And I realized very quickly, almost unforgivable flaw in our education system, both formal and informal. Informally from mom and dad and cousins and all the people that have been around us, our friends, and formally from our teachers and higher ed. But we were taught so many things, right, about life, about how to navigate life, so many things, math and algebra and civics and manners. But somehow left out of all that education was information about our brain. Like the one thing we are going to use forever in every situation is the brain. And somehow that was left out of the curriculum. And so I come at it from a neuroscience perspective. If I am the best version of myself when it matters the most, that can be something personal, like a dinner with a loved one, or as a dad. I'm a dad. I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, and I don't want to be having lunch or coffee or dinner with them and have my mind thinking about 20 other things.
Yeah.
I want to be present. I want to listen to them because I don't see them very often anymore. Or it could be work. I have an email that I need to respond to. And in that moment, can I somehow conjure up all the relevant memories, the books that I've read and the conversation that I've had and the people that I've met and the past experiences? Can my brain find all of those things in that moment when I have to reply to that email? And what shows up, with my hands typing on a keyboard is obviously output from my brain. I've done more functional brain scans than I think anybody, not clinical. So clinical means looking inside the human brain when something is wrong, like Alzheimer's or epilepsy or Parkinson's or those kinds of things, a neurological disorder. Most of us are not clinically sick, if you would, from a cognitive perspective, but we still have a brain. So I've looked into brains of people in the seconds up to a couple of minutes before they had to do something to the best of their ability. And I've been asking myself, like, is the brain in a certain state when boom, like voila, like amazing thoughts are coming into my head. I can see more things, hear more things, and remember more things. And conversely, is the brain in a different state when I just feel like I'm on cruise control and just being average, just I'm just reacting to everything. Or worse, I know I'm not the best version of myself. I know whatever the output is, whether I'm talking or writing or paying attention, it's not the best version of myself. And there's some firm answers to that question. Yes, yes, heck yes. When the brain is in a certain state, it amplifies our ability to be the best version of ourselves. So just to wrap up, I took a long, long road to, it was the constant searching that led me to neuroscience. It was the searching of the answer to that question and finding flaws in frameworks. I always found something kind of off, not entirely with whatever model was out there until I stumbled on neuroscience. And so that's what I really want to share with your audience is when you're an entrepreneur or you're a leader and you've talked about how can we be wholesome, or in the 90s we called it work-life balance and those kinds of things. But I will argue with you that that is entirely, I mean, literally entirely a cognitive skill. Your workload is just the stuff that you have to do. And if you're fresh and relaxed and things are pretty easy, it doesn't matter what the workload is. But if you're stressed out, even the smallest things will feel hard. That's cognitive. And so I do want to answer that question that I think your audience has, which is how can I be the best version of myself? And to me, that means being whole because you want to be the best version of yourself with whatever role you have: a mom, a dad, a neighbor, a son, a brother, a cousin, a boss, a leader, an entrepreneur, a customer, a supplier. All these roles, require different skills that we have to bring to bear.
That's really interesting. I think where I guess I want some clarity. When I think about the brain, I think about, the physical organ, and what I gather from what you talked about with like brain scans is, we're looking at that organ and how that organ is functioning. But you also spoke from the perspective of the cognitive load, the thinking and process. And what I would love to understand better is how the two are related, how it all fits together.
Yeah, great question. So, the brain, if you put your hands together like so, right? And so I'm holding my hands together. The size of your brain is basically the both of your hands wrapped up around each other above the wrist. It's incredibly small. It's caged in a skull. The average brain weighs about 3, maybe 4 pounds at the most. Very, very small. So you can think of the brain from a neurobiology perspective. You can think of the brain from a neuroanatomy perspective, the parts in it. You can think of the brain from a neurochemical perspective, all the chemicals that are coming in and out, the hormones and neurotransmitters and those kinds of things. And truthfully, I find that very, very complex. And when we say, let's try to understand the brain, I think most neuroscientists, not all, because neuroscience is predominantly in from the academic world. Like it's the only place that you would study it. And most of the reasons you would even study it is from a clinical perspective. From a clinical perspective, something is broken, like I said, Alzheimer's and those kinds of things. So you look for what's broken and you try to, understand how you can fix it, some type of a protocol or a drug. But I think in that sense, it is very confusing. I think I use the analogy of a car. I have been driving cars since I was, I don't know, 17, 18 years old. I still don't know how a carburetor works. I couldn't tell you more than maybe 10 parts of the whole car. And that would include tires and the seat. But I know enough to be safe in it and to take me to where I need to go. And so I intentionally try to stay away from the neuroanatomy, the neurochemistry, the neurobiology, and I go to where, what is it that we can measure? And so believe it or not, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, Rick, when I even learned for the first time that the brain has electricity. If you just think about that, like it's a very bizarre concept because if it's the same electricity that is in the light bulb, but if you think of every other thing that we have that is powered, that has electricity, it's got to be powered or charged somewhere, right? It's plugged into something or a battery, like our phones. We got to plug them in or they die. But we're not plugged into anything. Like how can we have electricity? And how that fact doesn't blow people's mind is just to me amazing. Like, I think it is unbelievable that we have electricity, the same electricity that's in your light bulb. And that's the miracle of the brain. So let me explain. So electricity is the language of the brain, right? And why must it be electricity? If you're walking somewhere, let's say that you're in Atlanta and you're at some park and you're walking, and about 15 feet in front of you, you see something black. Okay. Now you look at it, and light from that object goes from the object to your eyes, through your eyes. So that's light. So photons. It goes from your eyes to your retina, then to the back of your brain for you to give it a label. And your brain says, let me go search through my inventory. That's a snake. Not a stick, not a giraffe, not an elephant, not a bicycle, a snake. I've given it a label. In addition to giving a label instantly or simultaneously, I've also associated with it a threat rating. If it was a stick, I'd keep walking and just walk over it. But it's a snake. Danger. In addition to that, I create motor movement. I turn around and I run the other way. I may even yell or scream. I don't run at the snake and try to jump over it. I'm doing all of that, Rick, in what? A second and a half? What could possibly facilitate external input going through your eyes, your brain making so many labeling and decisions, get your body to physically move like that and haul ass the other way around? So it's not light because light, cannot travel through something opaque. It's not gravity because it's too slow. It's not osmosis because it's too slow. If it was gravity or osmosis, by the time that you even labeled it a snake, it'd be right next to you and biting you. Or you'd be still walking to it. So it's important, I think, if we are going to take command of our human experience, that we understand the one instrument that we use to govern the human experience, which is the brain. And I think the first place to start, forget neuroanatomy, forget neurochemistry, forget neurobiology. That's complex. Like, those are graduate level courses. If I'm a neurosurgeon, well, then yes, I do want to know those things, but most of us don't need to know that. And so it turns out when I look at a human brain, and I've done over, at this point, almost 21,000 functional brain scans. And like I said, I look into the brain in the seconds and maybe a couple of minutes before you want to do something to the best version of yourself. And I find that if you take that electricity that I just mentioned and you put it on a scale of 0 to 100, it's not 100% accurate, but for this conversation, it's close enough. Hertz is the unit of electricity. It's the same thing as the light bulb. If I'm measuring your brain and you're from 0 to 5, the likelihood that you are sleeping or about to go to sleep is extremely high. So on a scale from 0 to 100, you can understand that, it's very low on that scale. So if the brain activity is low, what could the brain be doing? Well, what the heck do we do when we're sleeping or about to fall asleep? Not much. I'm not reading. I'm not driving. I'm not eating. I'm not, taking a shower. So there are very few things for the brain to coordinate. Now let's go on the opposite end. Let's go to 100. Typically, if not always, you're yelling, you're screaming, you're agitated, you're pissed off. You are like ballistic, upset about something. And if you're an extrovert, you'll be yelling and screaming. And if you're an introvert, you'd, freeze or fight or flight. So if that's the range, I'm sleeping and that's 0, and then I'm completely upset, something traumatic has happened. I find that when we are the best version of myself, the frequency is around 10, somewhere between 8 and 12. So it's low. And I wasn't the first person to discover this, but functionally, these are sort of alpha, theta brain waves. These are bands, but to be more specific, it's around 10 hertz. That's why my book, which is called Life Explained, the subtitle is called Chasing 10 Hertz, because I make the claim, or I want to argue, that all of us in everything that we do, we're always chasing 10 Hertz. When you go to a concert and you listen to this live music and it makes you feel really good, that label is a label that is associated with that low frequency. If you're eating a meal and it's the best food you've ever had, if you're around people that are making you laugh or make you feel comfortable and safe, this thing that we call love, all these things, all of them, they're happening around 10. So it makes it very easy now if you have a scale. Every higher human ability and every higher human experience seems to be happening at 10 hertz. And not just today, but historically. In the book, I go as far back as several hundred BC to look at people that were describing doing something amazing. What does any human being from as far back as then to present day, when we do something amazing, we typically use labels like I was very calm, I was focused, I was relaxed. all these labels, these are English language labels, they're describing the state in your brain. It's very rare that someone says, I was so pissed off that I was the best version of myself. I was yelling and screaming, and suddenly the best words came out of my mouth. Like, even anecdotally, that doesn't happen. So I then began to ask, well, why? What's so magical about 10? Like, what's happening in the brain at 10 that makes you feel calm and relaxed and focused? So there are two things that happen, and then I'll pause. So the first thing is at 10 hertz, the sensory input. So we only have five senses, Rick. We don't have 20, 500, just five. And honestly, of those five, there are three dominant ones: what you see, what you feel, and what you hear. What you taste and smell is kind of low, but it doesn't matter. But at 10 hertz, the sensory input that is always coming in, it's never off. It's always coming in, unless you close your eyes or something, is amplified in the brain because there's not a lot of competition in the brain. There's not a lot of noise in the brain, right? So if you're at 10 hertz, you see more things, you taste more things, you hear more things. So they're there. So I give the example of, Rick, imagine you've had a very long day at work, and it's an 8 to 5 work, and it's been one bad call after another, one bad meeting after another. You get in your car at 5 o'clock, you're driving home 30 minutes away, you put some amazing music on. When you get home, if I asked you, hey, what did you listen to? The odds are really low that you can tell me what you heard, because your brain was thinking about so many other things, correct, from the day. So the auditory input from the car radio stereo was there, but your brain couldn't process it because there was so much noise in your brain. So sensory input, in most cases, loses to cognitive thoughts because those are vibrating at a much higher frequency. But at 10, the noise in your brain is so low, the traffic is so low that, again, people always say, I just want to be present. I want to be in the moment. But Rick, think about that. When someone uses a cliche like that, because it's a cliche, I want to be present, I want to be in the moment. What are they really saying? Are they not really saying, oh, in this moment, I want to see as much, feel as much, hear as much, taste as much. Like, I want everything about this environment, this moment, this second in time, to be in my brain. That's sensory input amplified. And so at 10, that happens naturally. The second thing, and then I'll stop here, that happens at 10 concurrently, because the traffic in your brain is low, is that our access, this is a key word that I want to use, our access to our existing inventory is also amplified. Meaning, when I'm at 10, I remember, well, a book that I read 5 years ago, a training that I went to 20 years ago, a conversation with dad 30 years ago, random things that are related to the situation at hand suddenly have a platform. They have an audience in my brain because they're being stimulated by the current situation. And I always tell people, it's like we feel cognitively very magical, like almost prophetic, when we experience a moment in time and we're remembering all the amazing things to bring to bear in a positive way. And then you verbalize it, or you action it with a behavior. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, where did that come from? Like, am I a prophet? Like it was, we don't have those moments very often. But all we're doing is we're accessing our own inventory. Again, it's not intelligence per se. It is because if I give you a word and you don't understand that word, you might go to Google, and Google's going to access the entire internet, the entire web, and give you the meaning of it. Our brain does not have access to the entire internet. It only has access to our own experiences. We don't have a wireless connection to ChatGPT or Google. So inherently, we are biased. Our human experience is entirely biased. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's just a fact. Because we're making sense of everything that is happening to us using only the books that are in the library of our brain, which are our experiences. It's not the totality of experience, and it's not objective. I was abused by my father and my entire childhood. And for the longest time, for 4 decades, 40 years, the lens with which I viewed the world was one of, especially as a father, to be very protective of people that couldn't defend themselves. Like, in any situation, if I saw somebody that couldn't defend themselves, something in me, just came alive. And I had to go defend that person. Every situation. If someone was being rude to a waitress in the next table over, I didn't even think about it. I just got up and I did something. But that was because nobody did that for me as a child. Nobody helped me. I was defenseless against my father. So my human experience was biased because that was my trauma, one of many. But my point is that at 10 hertz, despite the trauma that I have, I can still access other good things that are in my life that have happened to me, people that I've met, conversations that I've had, and I can be the best version of myself.
So we've got our different sensory inputs. So what do you recommend, or how do we stay in that space as much as possible?
Great question. Again, I think so. I'm going to teach you some tricks, but I think before I do that, I want to change the paradigm because sometimes, without knowing, we're not even asking the right question. Okay, so I don't know that the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, how do I be happy? How do I stay happy? How can I be the best version of myself all the time? Those seem like good questions, but they're not the right question in my view. I think the better question to ask, that is far more of an easier ask of self, is what are the moments in my day, each day, that I need to be the best version of myself? And in those moments, how can I access 10 Hertz? And I recommend that people identify one or two, that's it, of the most important events of each day. Sometimes they are predictable. I'm going to talk to this person at 10 o'clock. Sometimes they're not. You get cut off in traffic and it's another moment. But what I have found in my research is that when we are the best version of ourselves in only the most important moments of the day, then it organically impacts the rest of the moments. That is far easier and far different than trying to be the best version of myself all day long at everything. We have to let go of that. So happiness, to me, we have to let go of pursuing it in a traditional manner, which means, oh, happiness is associated with a certain amount of time or a certain amount of resources or lack of challenges and troubles. Or no, I find that, you know, we are happy when whatever the situation is, our best version showed up.
Tell me, so at 10 hertz, I mean, can we be content without being happy?
So I'll give you an example. So during COVID, my son and I, because we had nothing else to do, he was young at that point, decided to clean our garage. It's a 3-car garage, and I built these shelves, all kinds of shelves. And if you have a home and then you have 2 kids and you're raising them, you can imagine all the pile up and the junk that just gets stored in a garage. So we decided to clean it. I don't know, a couple hours into it, he finds something at the top shelf that I hadn't been to. It was a road atlas. He pulls it out and says, "Dad, what is this?" And I said, "It's a road atlas." "Oh, what is it?" "It looks like a bunch of maps." And I said, "Well, there used to be one in every car." And I was like, "Why?" And I said, "Because it gave us directions." And he says, "Why didn't you just use Google Maps?" And I said, "Because we didn't have it then." And he's looking at the book and is like, "Are you supposed to be looking at this and driving at the same time?" I said, "No, usually someone else is over there." So the analogy that as you asked me about content and happy, is very important. At that time, when we used the road atlas, that was the best knowledge that we had to navigate from point A to point B. If you saw somebody using a road atlas today, you'd be like, "Bro, what are you doing? Have you heard
Hmm.
of Google Maps?" Like, it'll tell you traffic, it'll tell you when to turn, it'll even talk to you. Like, why are you using, you see what I mean? So we use a lot of, so I view psychology almost as a road atlas. And we use these terms like content and happy and peace and Zen. They're all describing one thing. Why are we making things complicated? Whether it's nirvana or peace or serenity or happy or content, in my opinion, this is part of the confusion, is we have so many labels, but you're describing the same thing. So we're using a road atlas basically to describe the brain. And I'm saying, no, we have GPS now. And basically, the only thing that you should be thinking about to navigate your day, your lived human experience, is, where's my brain on scale to 1 to 100? That's easy. If you're yelling or screaming, you're at 100. Now, in this podcast, I can't go into detail, but in my book, I give people sort of, okay, if you're at 20, these are the thoughts that are in your head. If you're at 30, these are thoughts. But you even now, as I'm talking, you can visualize that the higher up I go, the more negative I'm going to be, verbally and non-verbally and cognitively. My thoughts are going to be faster. I might even sweat. And then the lower I go back to its 10, I get to what we would call much calmer. I'm speaking slower. I am listening more. I'm remembering more things. And gosh, I'm not panicked. So I would encourage you and your audience to say, like, and I know this is kind of hard to accept, but it's time to let go of the road atlas, which is all these previous models that good people invented to help us understand life. But none of those people really looked into the human brain functionally. And so they were describing something, because almost everything else you can see, but you can't see electricity that's caged in a skull until recently. So I think it's so much easier to just that if we adopted this scale, because it's not just a scale, but it's a scale that can give you a course of action. If you build your awareness and know these are thoughts in my head when I'm 30, Okay, well, then the self correction I got to make to go to 10 will be different if I'm at 90. So the scale itself gives you, but if you're mad, if that's the label that you're using, or angry, like, first of all, what's the difference between mad and angry? Do you know? I
No, I'm
don't.
not going to go there.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's 600 labels in the emotional labels in the English language. Like, none of us agree to what they are. Like, well, when was the last class that we all took on emotional labeling? So two people could say that they're angry or happy, and you say, well, what do you mean? They would all give you their answer. They might be similar, but they won't be identical. But yet, when we think about electricity, because it's measurable, it's a number. So it's much easier. So one of the techniques, to go back to the paradigm, is like we need a new language. We need a new framework. But the key should be, at any given moment that I need to be the best version of myself, I need to understand how far away am I from 10? And then in a matter of seconds, what can I do to get to 10? Now, historically, let me just put this out there, Rick. We already do many things to get us towards 10. Example, we go on vacation, we listen to music, we go to concerts, we work out, we run, we swim, we jog, we do all kinds of stuff. These are all activities, and that list is long. We call them stress relievers or our hobbies or blah, blah, blah. But all those activities get us to a much calmer state. We feel more relaxed when we do those things. The problem with those things, and I do them, by the way, meditation, yoga, mindfulness activities, these are all good things to do, good practices. The problem with those things is that they take too long. And the moments that our brain spikes, we need something much faster. So we've invented, or we've curated, these things called neurohacks. And I want to teach you two of them. So what is a neurohack? A neurohack is something that you do literally with those aforementioned senses to get your brain either to 10 or going towards 10. And they take a few seconds. So let's do the first one. So for the first one, and this will just take a few seconds, but I don't want you to start doing until I say go very loudly like that, because I want to explain it to you first. And I don't want you to start doing it because I want you to experience it. Okay. So this neurohack is called 10. Rick, in your mind, quietly with your lips closed, I want you to count from 1 to 10 literally as fast as you can. As long as you can say the numbers, count from 1 all the way through 10 as fast as your brain will allow you to do. As soon as you get to 10, go back towards 1, the opposite, literally as slow as you can. And when you get to 1, give me a thumbs up. That way I'll know that you are done. Okay, go. Okay. What did it feel like going from 0 to 10 first? Tell me that first.
It felt a different energy. It was just like, it was like a competition, almost like a small adrenaline rush.
Like rushed. Okay. And then what did it feel like going from 10 slowly back towards 1?
It was relaxing. It was like, everything was just slowing down, and just I just felt like I was going into a calmer place.
Okay. So you use the labels relax, you use the label slow, and you use the label calm. Okay. These are labels associated with 10 hertz. How long did it take you to do the 10-10?
I mean, it took maybe a couple of seconds to get to 10, and then maybe 5 or 6 seconds to get back down to 1.
So about 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. If you were to do the 10-10 at any other point, do you need to go buy something to do the 10-10? You need to change your clothes? No. Do you have to be in a certain location? No. So that 10-10 that you just did, if I were to measure you, and my team and I have measured hundreds, if not thousands of people doing that, we will show you a spike in your electricity and then a spike down. That is the cognitive equivalent of anywhere between 5 to about 20 minutes of traditional yoga or meditation or mindfulness. The problem with traditional meditation, mindfulness, yoga, exercise, music, blah, 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 is they're good things to do, but you would need time. You have to go somewhere, change your clothes, get a mat on the floor, close the lights, not be distracted. So now that we know how the brain works, I can tell you that as you were going down, and you literally used the words slow, relax, and calm. Those were your words. I just wrote them down. I did not use those words. Every human being, again, every higher human ability and higher human experience happens when people are relaxed, when things feel slow. Slow, 10 is slower than 100. That's the vibration. So Hertz is cycles per second. So 10 Hertz is vibrating slower than 100 Hertz. Okay. So when I work with athletes, we've won major championships together, Olympic gold medals, blah, blah, blah. One of the things that they tell me when they're operating very well is, hey, doc, everything feels really slow, like it's in slow motion. I'm very, very present. Nothing feels to be going on. Nothing feels rushed. Right? So the best version of ourselves, get this, Rick, is not a secret. And it was never a secret. We just didn't know how to describe it. We called it being in the zone or being in the Zen or the flow state. But again, None of those are real. They're labels, but they're not real. 10 is a very specific, measurable state in your brain. And by doing the 10-10 that you just did, now let's say that in about 30 minutes now, you have a your most important call of the day is not with me, but it's it's in about 30 minutes with, let's just say, a customer of yours. You're trying to do business with them. And let's say about 5 minutes before, you recognize that you're quite agitated. You've had a very long day. So with 5 minutes to go, what options do you have to get yourself down towards 10, maybe not 10? So these neurohacks, and literally there are hundreds of them. They're in my book, which is called Life Explained. There's an app out there called Neuro 580. But you can learn many of these neurohacks. All of them take around 10 seconds. The longest one that we have takes 30 seconds. But these are quick, sort of on the go things that you can do. And what I'm claiming, or what I want to challenge your audience, is when you think about being whole, like you are the best version of yourself at home without compromising work, and you're the best version of yourself at work without compromising home. That's a cognitive function. We have what's known as a cognitive load each day. What is the cost, the mental cost of the experiences that I'm having? If I start off my day and it's bad, 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 that's going to be an expensive day. So we work with a lot of surgeons. In fact, one of my board members is a surgeon. They do 3-5 surgeries each morning before 8 a.m. Okay. Now, typically, if the first surgery goes well, then the next one might go well. But what if the first one doesn't go well? Does the next 3 patients deserve the stress of your last one? Do you have the option of canceling these surgeries even though they're prepped and ready and stuff? No. So in moments like that, or think of teachers, you're going from one class to the next class to the next class to the next class for 6, 7, 8 hours in a row. That cognitive load is enormous. In Africa, we have a nonprofit. We do work with teachers. I just found this out, and I'm embarrassed because I'm from Africa. Which profession has the highest divorce rate in Africa? Being a teacher. Because each class has, again, 70, 80 kids in a classroom, not the class, like one classroom. Imagine 60, 70, 80 human beings that one teacher has to manage and do it every hour on the hour. What do they have left when they get done at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Nothing. Plus, they got to grade papers, homework, quizzes. Like, these human beings have nothing left. Let's do another neurohack, because I want to show you and your audience two, at least before we wrap up. So take your hands together like so. So I'm going to ask Rick to put his hands together. Go ahead. Yeah, but go ahead and put your hands up like so. Okay. Now your left hand is not going to move, but don't start doing it until I say go very loudly. Your left hand is not going to move because it's attached to your left side, which is where your heart is. Your right hand, I want you to imagine that the fingers in your right hand are legs, and the left hand is a mountain. And so we're going to do 6 of these. 3 of these, I want you to climb this mountain, not now, very fast. Like go very, very fast 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then the last 3, I want you to go very slow. As you're going slow, feel the tips of your of the fingers of the right hand. Feel the skin on the left hand. Okay? Understand?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Go. 3 fast ones, 3 slow, even slower. Okay? Good. What did the 3 fast ones feel like to you?
Again, I was brushing, had a little surge of energy.
Okay. And what did the 3 slow ones feel like to you?
It was calming. I was thinking through what I was doing, and it just calmed my mind.
Good. Calming. So there's a word that you use. It's the same word that you used. But again, if I were measuring you, if I had a device on your brain, I was measuring the electricity in your brain, I can tell you with 100% certainty that when you're doing the 3 fast one, you were pretty high, right? Because that's what people feel rushed up. But I can also tell you that when you do the 3 slow ones, you were going down. I don't know how far you went down because I don't know what your starting point was, but you certainly were trending down. That's what calm feels like. Again, how long did that take, Rick? Okay. And how often are your hands on you?
100% of the day.
That was a joke. I get it. But I'm just trying to tell you the instruments that we need, they're already on us. It's the senses. But if we now understand, now I just taught you 2, like I said, there are many more of these that you can learn. But these are 2 that you can do anytime, anywhere, any place without, and once you've learned them, you don't need to learn them again. Like it's not a subscription per se. You know what I mean? Like I just gave you a secret. Like you don't have to, how often do I ever have to teach you again how to do the 10-10 or to do these are called the hand mountain climbers? Never again, right? Because they're that easy and it takes just a few seconds. So if you can do one of those 2 before each moment that matters to you each day, and allows your brain to amplify the sensory input and more access to your existing inventory, then we increase our odds of being the best version of ourselves to the moments that matter. And when we accumulate being the best version of ourselves in moments that matter, think about it. That's a very rich life. That's a
Yeah.
happy life.
I'd like for you to talk a little bit about your book and the app, if you don't mind, before we wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've written 10 books. My 10th one came out in December. It's called Life Explained Chasing 10 Hertz. So now your audience understands what that means. I'm making the bold attempt, very humbly, to explain life, but from an electricity perspective and a brain perspective. And I'm making claims that 10 Hertz is really what we're all after. We want to be at 10 Hertz in moments that matter. And I go through things like trauma in there. I go through, believe it or not, Rick, the mother of all neurohacks, because that's what I just did with you, is kindness, which sounds so spiritual and kind of weird. But when people do acts of kindness towards other people, and I don't mean big acts of kindness like giving a big check or building a house for somebody like Habitat, those are great, by the way. I'm just talking about small, random acts of kindness towards others. That inventory has a very long shelf life in the human brain. Even if you recollect an act of kindness that you did years ago, and if I was measuring you, you would spike down. So it turns out kindness is a greater gift to self neurologically than it is to the person that was actually getting it. It's the mother of win-win-win. Everybody wins when we're kind. And so I have a whole chapter in the book about that. So again, the name of the book is called Life Explained Chasing 10 Hertz. It's available on Amazon. And then the app where you can, there are videos on how to do all of these, just like I showed you. It's called Neuro 580, so Neuro 580. It's available on Android and Apple worldwide. I think it's $8 a month, and for most of you people, you only need it for a few months, so you can use it and learn a lot of these things. So again, it's like once you learn them, you don't need to relearn them. At that point, you just have to identify the moments in each day that matter to you. And so all of the neurohacks have to do with your senses, your hands, your feet, your mouth, your tongue, and your eyes, which wherever you go, your senses are on you. And if your senses are on you, you can train yourself to use them to reduce the cognitive load. The first part of every human challenge that we face will always be the same, which is let me get to 10 hertz. So every human challenge that we face, you only need to know what the next step should be, or the first step. And the first step is get your brain to this relaxed, slow, calm state that you talked about, that I call 10 hertz. And then the 10 hertz brain will figure out the next step. Think about it. Whatever happens to us for the rest of as we live, if you always know what to do first, and I just told you, it won't make life's challenges go away. It'll make it a lot easier for you to navigate.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks for being on the show. I enjoyed our conversation. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.